This is every possible way the Pittsburgh Steelers can make the playoffs this season. So, as of right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they come into this week with the very low and bad chances to make the playoffs. But if they win out, their chances go so much higher into the 90%. But as of right now, they're like below 20% to make the playoffs. But this is everything the Steelers need to happen in order to make it. And I'm going to start off with the Steelers winning out. So they need to win out versus the Seattle Seahawks and then the Baltimore Ravens. And both those games are away. The Pittsburgh Steelers have no more home games for the rest of the season. So they need to win at Seattle and win at Baltimore. And then they have to have one of these happen. Jaguars either lose to Panthers or Titans, the Colts lose to the Raiders, or the Texans lose to the Titans, or the Bills lose to the Dolphins. If one of those happen and the Steelers win out, they will be making the playoffs. But let's start off with the chances for each one to happen and the Steelers winning out. What are the chances the Steelers win versus Seattle and Baltimore? Well, Seattle, this is an important game for them as well because their playoff chances all relies on winning out basically either. So they need to win out, so the Steelers are going to have a tough matchup against Seattle with both teams needing to win. But Seattle, their record is basically the same as Pittsburgh, so they've been an easy team. Some weeks they do good, some weeks they do bad. So this is a really good matchup for the Steelers. Not too tough, but also obviously a team with their chip on their shoulder and going out trying to win. And looking at the Baltimore Ravens, that game might be very important for both teams as well. Both teams have something on the line if it comes down to it, because the Baltimore Ravens are battling for that number 1 spot in the AFC to be the first team at the top of the conference and get that first round bye in the playoffs. But on the other hand, it might also mean that the Ravens don't have anything to play for and they can just bench their players, because if they fall down in the standings and they have no chance of getting that number 1 seed, then they may be able to rest their players. But who knows? I expect them to play their players because I expect that they will have something to play for, because they do face the Miami Dolphins, who are also battling for the number 1 spot, and then they face also the Cincinnati Bengals. So I expect them to be playing their players against the Steelers and having something to play for. So these two last matchups for the Steelers this season, both teams more than likely will have something to play for. And then you look at the other things that the Steelers need to happen. They need the Jaguars to lose to the Panthers or the Titans. Well, if you look at the Jaguars recently, the Jaguars just lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You would have thought that would have been an easy matchup for them. Well, they lost it, and they have not been playing good so far the late stretch of the season after starting off good early. And also, Trevor Lawrence has been injured and has been dealing with the injuries all throughout the season, basically, at least these last 4 weeks. And he said now he's still dealing with the injury and he's not 100%. So the chances that they lose to either the Panthers, that's not a good chance. But against the Titans, a division rival, we all know how those games go. Division rivals are always the toughest matchups. We know this from the Steelers facing Cincinnati, the Browns, and the Ravens. It's always a tough matchup, and I expect it to be a tough matchup to close the season, at least against the Titans as well for the Jaguars. So there's a chance that the Jaguars lose one of those 2 games. Looking at the Colts, the Steelers need the Colts to either lose to the Raiders if Jaguars don't end up losing. So the Colts need to lose to the Raiders. The Raiders have not been a good team, but they did have that one game where they scored like 70 points. So maybe they go rely on that hot streak. But the Colts, that should be an easy matchup for them. And it looks like that's going to be a tough matchup for the Steelers needing to happen. But the Texans losing to the Titans, also, once again, that's going to be a tough matchup. Because even though the Titans have not been really good this season, it seems like their games always come down to the wire. Even though they don't always win it, they have a really good running game with Derrick Henry and Spears, and then they have a solid defense as well. So that's going to be a game as well, the Texans versus the Titans. And also CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is just coming back from injury. I don't even know 100% that he will be playing, but he's been dealing with a concussion for the last 2 weeks, and this matchup takes place this week. So the Titans versus the Texans, the first game back from CJ Stroud, it's very possible that the Texans could actually lose this game. Also, the Bills versus the Dolphins. This one's going to be a very, very good matchup to watch, just from a football perspective. Two really good teams at this point in the season facing. The Bills start off very slowly. They should have been a lock to make the playoffs. Their team is really good, and they've been playing really good as of late. So this is going to be a really good matchup, just from a football perspective, but the Steelers need the Bills to lose this matchup if none of the other things happen. So the Bills losing to the Dolphins, it seems like whenever the Bills usually face the Dolphins, the Bills always get the better of them, and the Bills come out on top. That's what happened the last few years. But looking at this matchup, the Bills, the Dolphins, obviously, if the Dolphins' offense is able to do good, they have a really explosive offense, and if they're actually able to do it against a good defense, that's going to be a good thing for the Steelers. But I really don't know about this one, and I believe the Bills probably, with a chip on their shoulder, last game of the season, they're going to come out on top. But this is a matchup the Steelers would need the Bills to lose. So everything I just basically named is how the Steelers can make the playoffs. Once again, let me just recap it. They need to beat the Seattle Seahawks and beat the Baltimore Ravens in their final two games. They need to win out. And then one of these need to happen. Either the Jaguars lose to the Panthers or the Titans, but if that doesn't happen, they need the Colts to lose to the Raiders. And if that doesn't happen, they need the Texans to lose to the Titans. If that doesn't happen, they need the Bills to lose to the Dolphins. So one of those teams need to lose, and the Steelers need to win out. But with that being said, this is how the Steelers can make the playoffs and every possible situation that can unfold. Man, you just look at this and everything that needs to happen right for the Steelers, and you just think back of the last two times the Steelers made the playoffs in Big Ben's final 2 years. They are basically in the exact same situation, needing things to go right, and they don't control their own destiny. Yes, they need a win out, but they don't control the other teams beating the other teams. And that's exactly what happened with the Steelers the last 2 years of Big Ben's, and everything went right for them, and they made it. But just looking at the Steelers this season, they could have easily been in the playoffs. If they just won against the Arizona Cardinals, which were a 2-8, I believe, and then also the Patriots, which were a 2-8 team, if they just won against those bad teams at the bottom of the league, the Steelers could have easily made the playoffs. They've just been losing some really bad games as of late, and now hopefully they're able to turn around their season, win out, and have these other teams help them, just like other teams have helped them in the past in making the playoffs. But they don't control their own destiny, but they could have if their season just started better. If they just decided to fire Matt Canada earlier on in the season, maybe if he didn't return as the head coach this season, like many of us were saying. But hopefully their offense is able to produce and be able to keep up with what they did last week and blow out the final two teams and at least show us something and show it wasn't a fluke last week against the Bengals, and hopefully the defense is able to step up, continue playing well, and continue limiting the points for the opposing team, giving the Steelers offense a better chance. But this is everything you need to know basically heading into this week and everything that needs to happen. I'll recap it again probably next week and go over the options and the scenarios that have to happen next week after this week's set of games, whether they have a better chance or lower chance. I'll recap it and give you everything you need to know next week. But as of this week, this is what needs to happen. But with that being said, let me know down in the comments below. How do you feel about their chances and everything I just named out and laid out there for you? Do you believe it will happen? Do you think the Steelers are going to win out? Do you believe they're going to just win one of their games? Do you think the other teams are going to lose any of those games I named? Or do you believe the Steelers just won't make the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about this scenario and this possibility. Let me know your thoughts, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below as well if you like Steelers content and analysis reports. Like the video, turn on post notifications down below for this channel as well, so you get notified whenever I post the next Steelers video. I cover everything Steelers, so stay up to date with everything, turn on notifications, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all later. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.